All right, JR, you've been generous with your time. Do you need to run right now, or do you have time to play the schedule game with us?
We can do the schedule. Let's do it.
Okay, love the schedule game. We'll bring it up. Ohio State's 2025 schedule. And I gotta say, I cannot wait. And I'm actually trying to talk friend of the pod, Phil, into a trip to Columbus. It would be I've gone to a game in the shoe, JR. I won't tell you which one because it was in 2022, and I'll let you guess. But
I got it.
But anyway, that Texas game is the biggest game of Labor Day weekend. It's the first full weekend back in college football. You've got Texas versus Ohio State returning national champions, Texas returning playoff team. You've got Ryan Day and Steve Sarkisian. You've got Lee Corzo's last gasp on game day before we never have to watch College Game Day ever again. And yeah, what are you thinking about that Texas game?
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I wish it was a night game.
Yeah.
That's my only wish. No, I think it's going to be fantastic. I think that there's a lot of people really high on Texas this season. And so I've seen a lot of people just kind of assume that Texas is going to come in and just win against Ohio State. I mean, I don't know. Both teams are starting new quarterbacks. I know Arch Manning's played against a couple group of 5 teams, but I don't think you playing against, San Jose State is anything like trying to go into the horseshoe and play Ohio State. And not that I'm proud of it or anything, but he did get rocked pretty hard in that not Peach Bowl, whatever it was, bowl game, Cotton Bowl, when the safety hit him in that game and he nearly fumbled the ball. So I do think that is going to be a game where Ohio State's defense is really going to have to show themselves, and Matt Patricia really have to do some interesting stuff to confuse Arch Manning, and we'll see what the running game looks like for Texas too. They have a really good running back duo there, and Baxter, and then I'm forgetting the other guy's name, Welcher or something like that. But that's going to be a really good duo there at Texas. So we'll see what happens. I lean Ohio State because of the home field advantage. I think that the mystery of the defense and what Matt Patricia is going to run out there too is an advantage, since pretty much the entire Texas staff is the same. So Ryan Day and those guys have seen what Texas's defense is going to deploy, but they're not going to know what Matt Patricia is going to do with the defense. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, it'll be a great game, and I think both teams are legit national title contenders. It'll be interesting to me. I think it's really key that you have the continuity at linebacker and in the secondary, because Steve Sarkisian never saw a screen pass he didn't want to exploit. So I feel like, especially in the first game of the year, it's going to be a parade of screen passes, and can you stop that or not? And, you saw that last year, and, Ohio State was largely able to do it. I will note for all the SEC fans out there, the Buckeyes are a 3.5 point favorite. So I think Ohio State's going to win this game. I was sold on Julian Sayin in the spring game. I know there's somewhat of a battle, but I just thought that guy's the next great Buckeye quarterback. And I just think, if he outduels Arch Manning, we could see some Heisman hype. So there's a lot on the line.
Yeah, I totally agree. And back to the Big Ten SEC thing, like if you're a Big Ten fan, I get it. If you're a Michigan fan, I get it. If you're a Penn State fan, like I understand you don't want to root for the Buckeyes in this one, but if you're a Big Ten fan, like, you got to be rooting for Ohio State in this one. You got to be rooting for the Buckeyes to take down the SEC once again, because they've been popping their mouths off this entire offseason. And Michigan and Oklahoma, that's going to be a good game. Let's be honest, Wisconsin probably not going to beat Alabama. That's very unlikely. I mean, it was very unlikely that Oklahoma would beat them last year too, so we'll see what happens. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the game that it really means a lot for the Big Ten SEC battle going into next season.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. John, do you have any thoughts on this game before we move on?
No, I mean, it's going to be amazing, and what a great way to kick off the season, really.
Yeah, I'm desperate to attend. Going to one game in the shoe was not enough. I want to be there where there's a celebration after the game, not just before. So that's why I'm trying to get to this one, because I do think Ohio State's going to win that game. So let's say you do win that, that'll vault you up the polls. You'll already be in a high spot. That'll be a huge boost. You've got Grambling. All respect to HBCUs. We don't need to talk much about Grambling. Ohio U, a very tough MAC team. But again, these are the Buckeyes. They are the most talented team in the Big Ten, arguably the most talented team in the country. So I got to imagine you think those two will be pretty comfortable wins.
Yeah, Buckeyes beating Bobcats all day, every day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's an in-state thing. So I can see where there's probably some grudge on that both sides. But yeah, so we get to 3-0. And then I think, honestly, the sneakiest part about the Buckeyes this year is that you get that bye week before you have to go to Washington. Because Washington's a sneaky team this year. Jonah Coleman and Boston and Damon Williams. Oh man, they're gonna be a challenging offense. But I just think with 2 weeks to get ready, I think that's just gonna be tough for Washington to get the Buckeyes coming off that much preparation.
Yeah, Ryan Day is not historically good coming off the bye, which is interesting. So this Washington game is probably one of the keys to the season outside of, the big matchups. And I'm not trying to say Washington isn't a big matchup, but
no, but you mean outside of Penn State and Michigan.
Right. Yeah. And I mean no disrespect for the Washington fans out there. On our podcast, I've said Washington is a team that I think could make the playoffs and be a little bit of a dark horse to do that this season. So I'm high on Washington this season, which is one of the reasons why I think that, Ohio State needs to watch out. It's going to be Julian Saint's first road game. They have the second longest winning streak of all teams in college football at home. I mean, this is not going to be an easy game by any means. And if there are any Ohio State fans out there just thinking, oh yeah, we got Texas and then a few weeks, and then we're going to go a few months and get to Penn State. You got more games in there, and Washington being chief among them, that you got to be on the lookout for, because that team's hungry. Jed Fish has proven he's been able to put a good offense together, and if Matt Patricia isn't on his toes, they'll have some interesting things for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a really important game for Ohio State season. I think that is a linchpin. But John, I think I'm going to assume the Buckeyes roll there and do get the job done.
I would assume as well. I could see it being a good game, but
yes,
second half, Buckeyes take over pretty much.
Yeah. So then we've got Minnesota, and the last time Minnesota beat Ohio State in the shoe, we were all still in school. That was 2001. Ron Johnson went ballistic. I watch that game once every year or two. Makes me feel good about myself. But that said, I really want to pick Minnesota to be super competitive in this game. But there's two problems. One, PJ Fleck he tries to beat everybody else, but I feel like against Ohio State, sometimes he's like, let's just get out of here healthy. And two, Drake Lindsay is a redshirt freshman walking into the shoe to play against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Mm-hmm. And I just think that this one has a recipe to get ugly in Ohio State's favor, I think.
Is this the second road game for Minnesota? Because they go to Cal.
Yeah, second road game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's going to factor in Drake Lindsay. I think Drake Lindsay has a good opportunity. You guys were right on him. I kind of had some thoughts about maybe Zach Pyron could be the guy if they went with some more experience. But obviously Drake Lindsay threw that to bed. I mean, threw Zach Pyron right out of the club and said, "Get out of here! Nothing. We don't need you here." And they did that. So props to him. But I think Drake Lindsay could be a nice quarterback this season for Minnesota. Kind of be middle of the pack, maybe a little bit higher in the Big Ten. I think your majority of your offense probably going to come from Darius Taylor and AJ Turner. I don't think enough people are talking about AJ Turner.
Yeah.
And what he could be this season as well. So we'll see what happens there. But I think with a young quarterback like that, if Matt Patricia is who he's supposed to be, he should be able to take care of business in that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Especially at home.
You should have Drake seeing some ghosts, I think, in that game. It'll be a learning experience, but there's a chance the Gophers are 5-1 coming out of that going to Nebraska, but that's the wrong podcast. We already previewed Minnesota. So let's get back to the next game. So we're assuming the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to be 5-0 heading into Champaign for another key game, I think, playing against Illinois, a team with 16 starters back, a team with arguably the best returning quarterback in the Big Ten in Luke Altmaier. That's a really challenging road game right there, I think.
And don't forget the all-important Illabuck Trophy.
Yes, the Illabuck is on the line, and is this a Juice Williams situation where you're running into the right combination to make this? I'm not saying that. Look, I'm not picking Illinois to win this game, but I think this is a game, man. I think this is going to be a game. What do you think, JR?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. I think that I'm a little bit less concerned about Illinois because I don't think they quite have the star power around their team like Washington does. The fact that Washington has Denzel Boston, Jonah
Sure.
Coleman, Damon Williams. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I love me some Luke Altmaier, but I think Luke Altmaier is more of the type of guy that's going to grind it out in a close, very physical game that is going to kind of put things together. Now, the thing that I will say could possibly impact the game and keep it, much closer than people might expect, and honestly, Illinois could win if this happens, is if that secondary just plays lights out all game. They get Julian Sayin throwing 3-4 interceptions in that one, and let's be honest, Illinois has a fantastic secondary. If Gabe
Yes.
Yakus is able to get some pressure on Julian Sayin, he's able to, throw some bad balls, and Xavier Scott and those guys are able to pick some off. I could see it being a very good game for Illinois, but we'll see. It's a tough road game.
Yeah, we did our Illinois preview with Big Kurt from Eyes on Big, and he I didn't realize Illinois doesn't just have the 5 starters back; they have their top 8 defensive backs back. So they are going to be a really tough secondary, and that might be a game where I see Ryan Day wanting to run the ball a little more, and establish that and work from there. But then okay, so we're going to assume the Buckeyes roll on undefeated, John, unless you think Illinois wins that game.
I look. I'm not at this point in time. I'm not going to say that Ohio State loses any game. At this point in the schedule game, for sure.
Yes. Okay. Then we move on to, I'd say, obviously the most important thing for Buckeye fans is to beat Michigan this year, I believe.
Yeah.
But I think this game against Penn State is going to be the most important one when it comes to the Big Ten and the national title race.
Are we talking about Wisconsin yet?
Oh, I was going to skip them because they're so bad. But yeah, we should talk about them quick. No, give them a thought on Wisconsin. You do have to go to Camp Randall, so that is always a little tough.
Yeah, they did have a hard time at Camp Randall last time with Kyle McCord as the quarterback, and that is a very tough place to play. We'll see.
Yes.
It'd be nice if Fox drafts that game and makes it a noon game for us. Help us out here, Fox. All right, but I don't envision that happening. I think it'll probably be a CBS or an NBC game.
Sure.
But I do think that you could have a little bit of what happened to Oregon last year happen in this one. I mean, you got 3 road games here in 4 weeks for the Buckeyes. You could possibly see a scenario here. And I don't think Luke Fickell's the kind of coach that's just going to lose all these big games. He's going to get 1 or 2 of these big games, I think. As much as Wisconsin is probably not going to have the best season in the world, I do think they're probably going to make a bowl game, and they're probably going to get 1 or 2 of these big wins that helps kind of solidify Luke Fickell's coming back next year. Now, those 2 wins might be Illinois and Indiana, or they could be Ohio State and Michigan. We'll see. But I do think that Luke Fickell's going to get those guys up and playing well. And like I said, Camp Randall, it's a tough place to play, whether people realize it or not.
Yeah,
for sure. I think that's very respectful. I think Billy Edwards is going to be throwing you lollipops by the end of that one.
That's possible too. I mean,
that's what I think.
Yeah, it's possible too.
I think Caleb Downs is going to have a fantastic day.
Yeah. So we'll see. I do like that you respect Wisconsin that much. I respect them that much against Minnesota. I don't respect them that much against Ohio State.
Yes.
I'll be honest.
Yes.
Then you get a bye, another key bye to get ready for Penn State. And that's, like I was saying, it's kind of the game of the year in the Big Ten to me going into the year, because Penn State was right there, made the semifinal last year, nearly won the Big Ten title, nearly played for a national title, and Ohio State coming back as the reigning national champions. I mean, Penn State's got it all. They've got the experience. They've got the talent. They've got the pedigree. They've got the highest paid set of coordinators in the country. The question for me is, who is Drew Aller really? And I think we're going to find out against Ohio State. And this is going to be one of the games where we find out who Drew Aller is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot on the line here for the Ohio State coaching staff, right? Jim Knowles, everything going on there, and kind of that drama. I mean, we said how I thought about Jim Knowles, but
Jim Knowles, who for people who don't know was Ohio State's defensive coordinator for the national title, but then took a bag and ran to coach for Penn State.
Yeah. And but the other part of this too is, like, Drew Aller, he's an Ohio kid. He is somebody that Ohio State didn't try to sign until very late in the cycle. And when you're a 5-star quarterback like Drew Aller, you don't take such a liking to that, right? There's just some dudes from Ohio that don't like it when Ohio State doesn't go after him, and that's kind of what it felt like for Drew Aller. This will be his last chance to kind of stick it to Ohio State. We saw Will Howard last year. He had the motivation of like Penn State didn't want me and everything else, and then he had his trash talk after the game. So could we see something like that with Drew Aller? It'll be interesting. I'll tell you though, I'm much more concerned about that offensive line for Penn State than I am Drew Aller himself. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to disrespect Drew Aller, but I think that offensive line for Penn State is going to be very good this season. And if Zariah Fisher and Caleb Artis can be difference makers for Penn State, not even difference makers, but just good, healthy pieces for that defensive line, this could be one of the best offensive line, defensive line duos in the country. I mean, they have denied Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, two very good players coming back. We'll just have to see what the next two guys look like, and that could give Ohio State issues if Penn State wins the line of scrimmage in that one.
Yeah, and Penn State has arguably the best pair of running backs in the country in Singleton and Allen back once again, who could have gone pro, both of them, but decided to come back for one last run, a la what Ohio State did with a lot of their NFL draft eligible guys last year and Michigan the year before, and you know what we're saying. So I'm coming out. This is a true coin flip to me. I can't pick a winner or a loser, so I've got Ohio State either undefeated or with one loss after Penn State. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm getting the same feeling right now with Penn State. I need to see Aller take that next step, though. And if it looks like he is at this point in the season, then, I may be leaning more Penn State. But again, this is, like you said, with Julian saying, too, like, where are the quarterbacks? I think that's where I'm at with this, because both, I think, have the capability of beating each other at this point. But it's going to be health and the level of quarterback play at this point.
For sure. JR, I know you have limited time, so let's take the next three as in one conversation. You've got at Purdue, then UCLA, then Rutgers. Now, Purdue should be more competitive this year, but at the same time, they got rated in the portal. They're starting over again. I can't imagine that's going to be a very competitive game. I think the Buckeyes roll there. UCLA should be a little better. Rutgers is kind of, I'm not sure what to expect from Rutgers, honestly. I think they're going to run the ball well, but, can they replace Kyle Monangai? Is the defense where they want it to be? I don't know. What do you think? Are any of those games concerns to you at all, JR, going into them?
With all due respect, no, not really. I kind of have one thought for each game. At Purdue, they don't have Rondale Moore, so I'm not nearly as terrified of them as I would be years ago.
Fair.
UCLA, that's probably going to be Ohio State's only night game in the shoe. We saw what happened when Nico came to the shoe at night last time, so not saying it's going to be a repeat, but UCLA doesn't necessarily have the structure around Nico that Tennessee did, and so I'm not as concerned about that one. And then Rutgers, I got all kinds of respect for Greg Schiano. He's going to try to pull out, he's going to try to pull a rabbit out of a hat. He's going to try to throw anything he can out there. As long as Ohio State stays disciplined, though, they should take care of Rutgers, no problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think those are three pretty clear wins. John, what you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the reason I wore this hat, JR, is because I was at that 2022 Michigan game and I was ready to celebrate so hard, and then it just kind of didn't happen. And if you could have told me, I would have never guessed that Ryan Day would lose two more and still keep his job. But here we are. He won the national title. He's the winningest coach percentage-wise in college football. He's doing a great job. The only problem Ryan Day has really in his whole life, it seems like, is he's got to figure out how to beat Michigan. And I got to believe with a true freshman quarterback this year in Bryce Underwood, Ohio State's fans have to want this one badly. And I got to think Ohio State's gotten a little bit of an advantage just because Bryce Underwood is a true freshman. And that's hard to do, to come in and play as that young a player at that position.
Yeah, I think, I said on my last episode of the Big Ten Huddle, I said, look, Ohio State should win against Michigan, but I'm not going to pick them to beat Michigan until it happens. I mean, they should do it. Like, that's going to be my caveat. They should do it, but you can't pick it to happen because you saw what happened last year when Ohio State was a 20-point favorite at home, and they still lost that one. So we'll see how it plays out. Ohio State has everything they need. Bryce Underwood, young quarterback. We'll see what happens. I don't think the sanctions are going to be huge for Michigan, but if something happens and Sherrone Moore isn't coaching, do they just lose all the competitive edge that they've had under Harbaugh and Moore these past few years? I don't know. We'll see what happens, but at the end of the day, Ohio State has the talent. They have the players. Ryan Day should be able to get this done, But he bought him he bought himself a few more years, even if he loses to Michigan every time, because he won a national championship. The Ohio State faithful will be upset if they lose again, but it won't be nearly what it was last year.
Well, that was our whole thing last year when we were talking about Ryan Day and Ohio State. We were like, after the loss of Michigan, especially, we were like, he has to win a national title. Like, I mean, like otherwise he'd be gone. I mean, we were convinced anyways that he would have been fired if he had not won a national title. So he saved it. He did a great job. It was a team of destiny. Like you said, we saw it after Tennessee, and then of course it was just solidified after Oregon, and that was game over in my opinion from there on out.
What I will say, what jumps out at me, gentlemen, is we just did this and we have Ohio State between 10-2 and 12-0. So it looks like another playoff year for the Buckeyes.
For sure.
They're going to have a real chance to defend their title. And JR, that's gotta be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think at this point, all Ohio State has to do is just make the playoffs. We saw what happened last year when they, kind of turn up and really get going, really get into it. So I don't want to say anything for sure, like, oh, they definitely win it or anything like that. I'm not that big of a homer, but I do think Ohio State is not a team anybody's going to want to see in the playoffs. That's not a team that anybody is going to be like, oh yeah, we'll take them first round. That's going to be a team where if they have 2 losses and you're the 9th seed and they're the 8th seed, you're like, gosh,
like how did that happen?
Got Ole Miss.
Yeah. All right.